Wild horse saves young woman from wild coyotes. And miracle happens in the middle of the desert. An 18-year-old girl was found surrounded by wild predators. Before the situation worsened, a mysterious black horse appeared and determinedly drove the animals away. What no one expected was that months later, this young woman would reveal a deep connection with forces that transcend our understanding. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear in your life. The sun was dying on the horizon when the jeep of the scientific expedition cut through the dunes of the White Sands Desert. Inside the vehicle, Sarah Matthews, a renowned biologist and animal behavior specialist, observed the landscape through dark glasses. At 42, she carried on her face the marks of a life dedicated to nature and her own emotional scars. "We'll reach the camp before nightfall," the guide informed. "The storm forecast for tomorrow could complicate our return." Sarah merely nodded, turning her attention back to her notes. This would be her last expedition before taking over as coordinator of the Environmental Preservation Institute in Denver, a successful career that couldn't fill the void she had carried since her husband's death 5 years ago. The sky was already covered with stars when a sound cut through the night, a distant scream, followed by a disturbing silence. Sarah raised her head, alerting her colleagues. "Did you hear that?" No one had noticed. Perhaps it was just the wind playing among the dunes, they suggested. But Sarah insisted, leaving the camp with a flashlight. She advanced over the dunes, following the instinct that had guided her so many times in her work. The silence became more oppressive until her eyes found the impossible, a young woman, no more than 18 years old, unconscious among the dunes. She wore torn and dirty clothes, as if she had wandered through the desert for days. Next to the young woman, with a protective posture, a majestic black horse watched Sarah, its eyes reflecting the moonlight like two live embers. "My God!" she exclaimed, approaching cautiously. The horse remained firm, showing no aggression, just watching. When Sarah touched the young woman, she noticed a metallic object, an ancient bronze medallion with indecipherable inscriptions hanging from her neck. The girl didn't react to the touch, her breathing weak and irregular. "I'm going to help you," she whispered, checking her vital signs. When trying to lift the young woman, the horse stepped back a few paces, neighed softly, and then disappeared into the darkness of the desert, like a shadow swallowed by the night. Sarah remained motionless, her heart racing as she called for help on the radio. News of the young woman found in the desert spread quickly. Authorities were notified, searches conducted, reports produced. "Mystery in White Sands," announced the newspapers. "Young woman survives in desert protected by wild horse," highlighted the TV news. Experts debated the unusual case, questioning how a teenager could survive in those conditions, even more accompanied by a wild animal that apparently protected her. After initial examinations, it was determined that the young woman suffered from severe dehydration and exhaustion, but surprisingly showed no serious injuries. "It's as if someone or something was protecting her," commented the doctor, intrigued. Without documents or clues about her identity, the young woman was temporarily admitted to a hospital in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Sarah, who should have returned to Denver, postponed her departure. Something inexplicable kept her connected to that unknown young woman. She visited the hospital daily, observing the girl who intrigued her so much. Staff reported strange occurrences: neighing heard during the night, wild horses spotted near the hospital, flowers blooming out of season in the institution's gardens. "She's special," stated one of the nurses. "The other patients become calmer when they're near her, and the animals in the garden seem to gravitate around her room." 3 days later, the young woman finally awoke. Her eyes, a deep green like the Montana forests, rested confusedly on Sarah, who was by her bedside. Where am I?" she asked in a hoarse voice. "You're safe in a hospital in Las Cruces. My name is Sarah Matthews. I found you in the desert 3 days ago." The young woman tried to get up, but her weakened body protested. "My name is Lily," she said finally. "I don't remember how I got to the desert. I only remember," said the horse. Subsequent investigations revealed little about Lily's past. She claimed to be an orphan, raised in a small village in rural New Mexico. She told of having set out on a journey of self-discovery after turning 18, but couldn't explain how she had gotten lost in the desert or how long she had been wandering before being found. "I have flashes of memory," she confided to Sarah. "The black horse guiding me to water sources, stars that seemed to speak to me. The medallion, sir, warming against my skin when danger approached." After 2 weeks of investigations with no conclusive results, the authorities allowed Sarah to temporarily assume responsibility for Lily, while her case was processed by the social assistance system. "Are you sure?" questioned her assistant over the phone. "The institute is waiting for you. This would be your big professional chance." Sarah observed the young woman who, even fragile, exhibited an unusual connection with the environment around her, talking to birds on the windowsill, making small flowers sprout in apparently empty pots just with her touch. "Some chances appear only once in a lifetime," she replied, "and this isn't about career." 3 months later, Sarah and Lily settled in a rural property on the outskirts of Asheville, North Carolina. The modest house, surrounded by lush Appalachian vegetation and protected by mountains, offered the isolation that Sarah sought to help the young woman recover, away from the spotlight that the case still attracted. Lily's first months in the new house were marked by unusual behaviors. She talked to plants as if they were old friends. She emitted sounds similar to soft neighs that made the region's animals approach. She repeatedly drew the silhouette of a black horse under a starry sky. She slept with the medallion always close, an object that inexplicably warmed when it touched her skin. "She talks with the wind," commented Mrs. Johnson once, the lady who helped Sarah with the care of the house. "My grandmother used to say that some people are born with one foot in the invisible world." As she recovered, the strange events became more frequent. Injured birds mysteriously appeared on the porch as if seeking help. Plants grew with unusual vigor around the house. During storms, Lily remained strangely calm, as if she could predict the trajectory of lightning. "Sarah," called Lily on a summer night as they watched the stars on the porch, "he visits me in dreams." "Who, dear?" "The night horse. He says he's waiting for me." Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. There was something in Lily's voice, an ancestral certainty that didn't match her youth. "He protected me in the desert because he knew I needed to find you," the young woman continued with disconcerting naturalness. "And because I needed to learn." "Learn what, Lily?" "To be a bridge." The enigmatic answer hung in the air like a prophecy. That same night, while Lily slept, Sarah found the young woman's diary full of elaborate drawings, stone circles, symbols similar to those on the medallion, and the recurring figure of the black horse. Under the moonlight, the medallion that rested on the bedside table seemed to pulse gently, like a metallic heart guarding ancestral secrets. The next morning, Sarah found horse tracks in the garden, large, deep, forming a perfect circle around the house. Inside the circle, the grass had inexplicably grown overnight, displaying a vibrant green that contrasted with the rest of the garden. In the center, a single unknown flower, with petals black as coal and a center golden as the sun, majestically bloomed. Lily, upon seeing the flower, smiled like someone recognizing an old friend. "He was here," she said simply, caressing the black petals with the intimacy of someone sharing an ancient secret. "It's almost time." The months passed, and Lily revealed more and more of her extraordinary abilities. At 19, she was a young woman of singular beauty, eyes as deep as the night sky, black and wavy hair that reflected the sun like running water, and a presence that silently commanded respect from nature around her. The relationship between Sarah and Lily transcended the common bond between guardian and ward. They were companions, accomplices in the secrets they shared and in the questions they still couldn't answer. The scientist that existed in Sarah never stopped investigating the phenomena that surrounded the young woman, keeping meticulous diaries where she recorded each inexplicable event: the flowers that grew following the girl's steps, the injured animals that appeared seeking help, the subtle climate changes that seemed to respond to Lily's emotions. "The science professor at the university said I'm wrong," Lily commented one afternoon, returning from the courses she had begun to attend in the city. "He said it's impossible for plants to communicate their needs to each other." Sarah smiled, observing the garden around the house, an exuberant living testimony against that academic statement. "There are truths that science is still learning to see, Lily." But not everything was wonderful in Lily's life. With the passage of time came recurring nightmares, disturbing visions of the desert in flames, of the medallion pulsing with its own light, of ancestral voices calling by a name she didn't recognize. She would wake up sweating with the sensation that something unfinished was waiting for her. "I'm afraid, Sarah," she confessed after a particularly difficult night. "I feel that there's something in me that I don't understand, something that waits to awaken." The medallion always beside her bed seemed to subtly intensify its glow when Lily expressed these concerns. Sarah noticed that the inscriptions, once almost erased, gradually became more distinct, as if they were responding to the young woman's presence. It was during this time that Lily began to isolate herself. At the university, where she had begun studies in biology influenced by Sarah, she kept herself distant from colleagues who considered her weird. She preferred the company of the century-old trees on campus, where she spent breaks talking with what she called presences. The professors were concerned but respected her reserved behavior, recognizing her extraordinary intelligence and acute sensitivity. "She's not like other students," commented the botany professor during a conversation with Sarah. "When Lily analyzes plant species, it's as if she's conversing with them, as if she knows secrets that our microscopes can't reveal." At home, Sarah observed with growing concern the young woman's isolation. She discreetly consulted psychologists, avoiding exposing Lily's complete story. The professionals suggested only that the young woman was developing her identity, trying to understand her place in the world, analyses that seemed terribly superficial given the complexity Sarah witnessed daily. On an autumn afternoon, while walking alone through the hills near the house, Lily had her first conscious encounter with the mystery that surrounded her. On the horizon, silhouetted against the setting sun, the unmistakable silhouette of a black horse watched her. Motionless as a statue, majestic as an ancient deity, the animal held the young woman's gaze for long seconds before disappearing among the growing shadows of the evening. Lily returned home transformed. Her eyes shone with a new awareness, as if invisible veils had been removed. "I saw him, Sarah," she announced with a firm voice. "The guardian, he's calling me." That night, while Sarah slept, Lily followed an inexplicable impulse. Under the moonlight, she went to the back garden with the medallion between her hands. The object, now clearly illuminated by an inner light, pulsed like a metallic heart. Following an instinct she didn't understand, the young woman began to dig at a specific point, as if invisible hands guided her movements. After a few minutes, her hands found cold stones arranged in a perfect circle buried for centuries, a primitive altar, a message left by unknown hands. In the center of the circle, a small cavity held a second medallion, identical to hers but with complementary inscriptions. When the two medallions touched, a bluish light radiated, projecting complex symbols onto the nearby trees, a forgotten language, an encrypted message. Lily felt every cell in her body respond to that light, as if awakening from a long sleep. The next morning, Sarah found the young woman asleep in the garden, surrounded by the unearthed stones and holding the two united medallions. Around her, the garden had transformed. Unknown flowers sprouted in circular patterns, the grass displayed a supernatural green, and small wild animals rested peacefully near the young woman, like improvised guardians. "What happened here, Lily?" The young woman opened her eyes slowly, with a new serenity in her gaze. "I started to remember, Sarah. They're not dreams, they're memories." In the days that followed, Lily dedicated herself to deciphering the inscriptions on the medallions. With an intuition that defied logic, she translated symbols that no archaeologist would be able to understand. In her notebook, she wrote fragments of an ancient story. The story of guardians of the earth, beings that transitioned between the human world and the natural world, responsible for maintaining the balance between the primordial forces. "I belong to them," she explained to Sarah, who observed the process with fascination and apprehension. "The black horse is just a form, a physical manifestation of something much greater." Sarah, a scientist by training, found herself at the limit between skepticism and acceptance of a reality that defied everything she had learned. But the evidence was undeniable. Something extraordinary was happening with Lily, something that transcended conventional explanations. "Why you, Lily? Why were you in the desert?" "So that I could be found by you, to understand the human world, your way of thinking, to be a bridge between the two worlds when the time came." The revelation hit Sarah like lightning. Lily spoke like someone much older, someone with the wisdom of centuries. For the first time, The scientist understood that perhaps the young woman had never truly been common. She was a special presence with a greater purpose that was just beginning to reveal itself. In the local community, the strange events around the property began to attract attention. Abundant harvests, water springs inexplicably appearing, wild animals approaching human habitations without fear. Some saw these as blessings, others, more superstitious, as disturbing omens. "That young woman isn't like us," they whispered at Sunday markets. "Nature bows to her presence." Lily's fame spread subtly. People began to appear seeking cures for illnesses, advice for plantations, guidance for problems that doctors and technicians couldn't solve. The young woman, initially reluctant, began to welcome those who arrived, offering simple words that carried a disconcerting wisdom. "She has the gift," visitors affirmed as they left. "She can see beyond the visible." Sarah observed everything with growing concern. The exposure attracted the curious, skeptics, sensationalists. Journalists began to investigate the young woman's past, rekindling interest in the case of the desert girl from months ago. The protection that Sarah had so carefully built around Lily threatened to crumble. "We need to be careful, Lily. Not everyone will understand what's happening with you." The young woman nodded, her distant gaze fixed on the mountains beyond the property. "Time is accelerating, Sarah. I feel it. Something is coming. Something that will require me to assume who I truly am." That same night, an unusual meteorological phenomenon was recorded in the region. Dancing lights in the sky, similar to aurora borealis, a phenomenon never seen at that latitude. Scientists rushed to document and explain the event, while Lily observed the luminous curtains with a smile of recognition. The next day, the first signs of a dramatic change announced themselves. An abnormal heat for the season, a dryness in the air that made plants wilt, migratory birds prematurely disappearing. The news talked about climatic anomalies, possible consequences of global warming. But Lily and Sarah knew it was something more, the prelude to an imminent transformation, a call that could no longer be ignored. The change in climate intensified in the following weeks. The sky, once a deep blue, became constantly cloudy, with heavy clouds that brought no rain. The lush vegetation of the mountains began to dry out, and wild animals gradually disappeared from the region, as if answering an invisible evacuation call. The local residents, accustomed to the mild microclimate of Asheville, observed the phenomenon with growing apprehension. Environmental authorities were notified, experts consulted, theories proposed, from changes in ocean currents to consequences of distant deforestation. No one could explain the rapidity with which the environment was transforming. Only Lily seemed to understand what was happening, although her understanding came in fragments, like pieces of an ancestral puzzle that slowly fit into her consciousness. The two medallions, now united by a silver chain she had forged herself, never left her neck. At night they emitted a faint glow that illuminated her room with enigmatic designs projected on the walls. "The Earth is preparing," she explained to Sarah on a particularly dry morning. "The cycle is completing itself." "What cycle, Lily? What's about to happen?" The young woman contemplated the horizon before answering. "A purification, Sarah. A necessary new beginning." Sarah's concern grew daily. As a scientist, she sought rational explanations. As a friend and guardian, she feared for the well-being of the young woman, who seemed increasingly connected to the mysterious events. She discreetly consulted specialists in mythology, anthropologists, historians, trying to find references to the medallion symbols or the phenomena she witnessed. An anthropology professor from Duke University showed particular interest in the case. "These symbols," he commented after analyzing photographs of the medallions, "resemble inscriptions found in pre-Columbian archaeological sites. They speak of elemental guardians, beings that would maintain the balance between the forces of nature." "And what would happen if that balance was broken?" Sarah questioned. The academic hesitated, nervously adjusting his glasses. "The legends mention periods of great transformation, fire, water, wind, and earth, manifesting in purifying cycles. Some texts speak of human messengers, a bridge between the worlds." The words echoed in Sarah's mind. To be a bridge, exactly what Lily had mentioned months ago, when she was still recovering. In the small mountain town, tension increased with the persistence of the drought. Historic springs dried up, plantations died, water rationing became a reality. Amid the growing despair, Rumors about this special young woman who lived with the biologist in the hills gained strength. Some saw her as a possible savior, others as the cause of the problems. One night, Sarah was awakened by insistent knocks on the door. A group of residents, led by the local pastor, demanded to speak with Lily. "They say your ward has powers," stated the clergyman, visibly uncomfortable with his role in that situation. "That she can communicate with nature. We need help. Our children are getting sick from the dust. The elderly are suffering from the heat." Sarah felt the blood freeze in her veins. The moment she had so feared had arrived. Lily was being exposed, transformed into an object of hope or fear. Before she could respond, the young woman herself appeared on the porch dressed in a simple tunic, the double medallion glowing intensely against her chest. "I cannot prevent what is about to happen," she said in a serene voice, addressing the small crowd. "But I can help you prepare." In the following weeks, Sarah's house transformed into the center of a strange pilgrimage. Lily guided visitors on how to store water, protect essential plantations, strengthen structures. She spoke with the authority of someone who saw beyond the visible horizon, predicting developments that had not yet manifested. "She knows things," the residents commented, "things that no one else can see." Sarah observed that transformation with conflicting feelings: admiration for the young woman's wisdom and compassion, fear of the growing public scrutiny, and a deep sadness for the certainty that something irrevocable was approaching. One afternoon, while Lily rested after attending to dozens of visitors, Sarah found the young woman's diary open on the table. Meticulous drawings showed the region seen from above, with precise markings indicating escape routes, points of underground water, safe areas. On one page, a circled date, exactly 3 days ahead. Beside it, simple words that made her heart tighten: the arrival of fire. That night, an unprecedented electrical storm hit the region. Lightning cut through the sky in unusual patterns, as if writing messages in luminous code. There was no rain, only pure electricity concentrating over the dried mountains. Lily observed the spectacle from the porch, her body responding to each electrical discharge with subtle tremors. The medallions on her chest pulsed in synchrony with the lightning, as if participating in a silent communication. "It has begun," she whispered. The next morning, the first outbreaks of fire were spotted on the most distant slopes. With the vegetation completely dry and unpredictable winds, the fire spread at a frightening speed. Emergency sirens sounded, evacuation orders were issued, fire brigades mobilized from neighboring cities. "We need to leave now, Lily," Sarah insisted, gathering documents and essential objects. "The fire is advancing too quickly." But the young woman remained strangely calm, as if waiting for something specific. "Not yet, Sarah. We need to wait." "Wait for what? We'll die here if we don't leave." Lily held her friend's hands between her own, transmitting a disconcerting serenity. "Trust me, as I have always trusted you." By dusk, the situation had become critical. Fire surrounded the property on 3 sides, blocking the access roads. Rescue helicopters flew over the area, but visibility conditions worsened by the minute with the dense smoke. Sarah's house, like an island in a sea of flames, seemed doomed. It was then that Lily walked to the center of the garden. She removed the medallions from her neck and buried them at the exact location where she had found the circle of stones. With her eyes closed, she began to chant a low, melodious song in a language Sarah had never heard. The ground beneath her feet trembled gently. The air, previously suffocating with smoke, cleared in a perfect circle around the property, as if an invisible dome protected them. And then, the sound, the unmistakable trotting of hooves approaching through the flames. Sarah observed, paralyzed between terror and awe, when the first silhouette emerged through the curtain of fire. A majestic black horse, its eyes reflecting the flames like incandescent mirrors, advanced into the garden. Behind it, another, and another. An entire herd materialized, emerging from the fire itself as if it were merely a portal between dimensions. The lead horse, the same one Sarah recognized from Lily's visions and drawings, approached the young woman, lowering its majestic head in a gesture that seemed like a reverence. Lily touched its forehead, and something silent was communicated between them. "It's time, Sarah," announced Lily, turning to her friend. "They've come to guide us to a safe place." "Who are they, Lily? What's happening?" The young woman smiled, her eyes reflecting an ancestral wisdom. "They are the guardians, They've always been here, watching, waiting for me to be ready. Sarah, a rational scientist who had spent her life seeking logical explanations for the world, found herself facing the inexplicable in its purest form. All her skepticism crumbled when the black horse approached her, offering its back in a silent invitation. "Trust, Sarah, as you taught me to trust." With an accelerated heart and trembling hands, Sarah mounted the horse, feeling the supernatural warmth that emanated from the animal. Lily, with the naturalness of someone reconnecting with a part of herself, climbed onto the back of the herd's leader. In seconds they were in motion, galloping through a path that miraculously opened among the flames. The fire, which consumed everything around it, seemed to respectfully divert from the passage of the horses. They advanced through hidden ravines, invisible trails that Sarah had never noticed in her years living in those mountains. It was as if a secret geography revealed itself, a parallel reality that had always existed, hidden beneath the veil of the everyday. After what seemed like an eternity, they emerged in a protected valley between rocky peaks, a place of abundant water and untouched vegetation that, inexplicably, the fire hadn't reached. Firefighters searching for survivors found the two there, disoriented but unharmed, without any plausible explanation of how they had reached that natural refuge. "It's a miracle," declared the rescue team commander. "No one could have crossed that curtain of fire." When questioned about how they survived, Sarah merely stammered something about finding an alternative path. Lily, in turn, maintained a serene silence, her eyes fixed on the horizon, where the glow of the fire still illuminated the night sky like an apocalyptic aurora. The great fire became known as the purification of the mountains, consuming more than 75,000 acres of vegetation before being finally controlled. Miraculously, no human life was lost, as if a selective intelligence guided the flames, sparing habitations and offering inexplicable escape routes. When Sarah and Lily returned to their property weeks later, they expected to find only ashes and destruction. What they saw defied any explanation. The house remained intact, like an island of normality in a sea of devastation. Even more surprising, a perfect circle of lush vegetation extended around the construction, dramatically contrasting with the charred landscape that dominated the rest of the region. "How is this possible?" asked the forest engineer who accompanied the official inspection. "The fire simply contoured this area, and these plants, some are species we've never recorded at this altitude." Sarah observed everything in silence, while Lily walked through the transformed garden, recognizing each new species, touching the leaves with the intimacy of someone meeting old friends again. In the exact center of the land where the medallions had been buried, an unknown tree grew, young but vigorous, with leaves that alternated from deep green to absolute black, depending on the incidence of light. "The bridge tree," explained Lily, hugging the still thin trunk. "It will grow for 1,000 years, marking this place as a meeting point between the worlds." The following months brought even deeper transformations. The region devastated by fire was reborn at an inexplicable speed. Plant species that should take decades to re-establish sprouted in a matter of weeks. Dry springs began to flow again, more abundant than before. Animals that had disappeared returned, including species considered extinct in that region. Scientists from all over the country rushed to document the phenomenon, dubbed by the press as the ecological miracle of Asheville. Biologists, geologists, botanists, and zoologists established research bases in the area, cataloging species, analyzing soil samples, monitoring the accelerated development of the ecosystem. "It's as if the fire had been just the first part of a planned regenerative process," observed a renowned ecologist in a documentary about the phenomenon. "We see here patterns of ecological succession that would normally take centuries happening in real time." Sarah, with her scientific background, was invited to participate in the research. Divided between professional curiosity and intimate knowledge of the true catalyst of those changes, she accepted the role, becoming a kind of bridge between the academic community and the local residents. Lily, in turn, gradually assumed a new role in the community. Without fanfare or proclamations, she became a constant presence in reforestation and recovery efforts. Her suggestions about where to plant certain species, where to dig to find water, which areas to preserve untouched, were followed with growing respect, first by traditional residents, then by the researchers themselves, who noticed the inexplicable effectiveness of her guidance. "She simply knows," commented an assistant biologist. "It's as if she could read the landscape at a level that our instruments don't capture." Lily's 20th birthday coincided with the first major rainfall after the regeneration of the forest. A community celebration was organized in the central square of the small town. The pastor, once fearful of the young woman's gifts, had now invited her to a place of honor in the Thanksgiving celebration. During the party, while local musicians played, Lily discreetly moved away from the crowd. Sarah followed her, finding her at the edge of the square, observing the horizon with a contemplative expression. "What are you seeing, Lily?" "The next chapter, Sarah. It's about to begin." The next day, unexpected visitors arrived at the property, representatives of a Native American community from Arizona, led by an elder whose age was impossible to determine. Without prior announcement, without formal invitation, they had traveled thousands of miles attracted by recurring dreams about the young woman who speaks with the earth. "The ancients told us signs would come," explained the elder, in an English heavy with accent. "First the purifying fire, then the rebirth. The circle is completing itself." The elder brought with her an object that made Lily and Sarah freeze in astonishment, a third medallion, identical to the two that had been buried, but with complementary inscriptions that seemed to complete a message. "This has been with our tribe for 17 generations, awaiting the moment to return to the hands of the walker between worlds." When Lily touched the third medallion, a golden light emanated from the ground beneath her feet. The entire garden seemed to pulse, like a giant heart connected to the veins of the earth. The bridge tree, still young but already imposing, trembled slightly, and its leaves temporarily became translucent, revealing entire constellations captured in its internal structure. "What's happening?" asked Sarah, divided between awe and fear. The elder smiled, revealing surprisingly perfect teeth for her advanced age. "The initiation has begun. Your ward is awakening to her true purpose." In the following weeks, Sarah's property became a point of convergence for people who arrived from the four corners of the country: traditional healers, indigenous shamans, guardians of ancestral traditions that had remained hidden for generations. Each brought fragments of knowledge, pieces of a millennial puzzle that now reorganized itself around Lily. "They always knew," the young woman explained to Sarah during a rare night of solitude. "They kept the knowledge alive, waiting for the moment of awakening." "What awakening, Lily? What exactly is happening to you?" The young woman contemplated her own hands, hands that could now make seeds germinate with a touch, calm wild animals with a gesture, feel underground water dozens of yards deep. "I'm becoming who I was always destined to be, Sarah. A guardian, an interpreter, a bridge." Sarah observed the young woman with a mixture of pride and melancholy. Part of her had always known this moment would come, the moment when Lily would transcend the limits of the ward. She had welcomed to become something greater, something that belonged not only to her, but to the world. "Will I lose you to this destiny?" Lily held her friend's hands, transmitting through the touch the deep love that united them. "You will never lose me. You will only share me with something greater." The initiation ceremony took place on a full moon night, exactly 1 year after the Great Fire. Representatives of various traditions gathered in a circle around the bridge tree, which now displayed its own glow, visible even from a distance. Lily, dressed in a simple white tunic, remained at the center, the third medallion now incorporated into a necklace that united the 3 ancestral artifacts. Sarah observed from a distance, respecting the sacred space that had formed. The scientist that existed in her still sought rational explanations for the extraordinary phenomena she witnessed. The friend she had become accepted the magic with an open heart. When the moon reached its zenith, something extraordinary happened. The sound of powerful hooves reverberated through the clearing, although no animal was visible. The air trembled with the presence of invisible forces that seemed to surround the site of the ceremony. It was then that he appeared, the majestic black horse, emerging not from the shadows of the forest, but apparently from the very air that condensed into his powerful form. His eyes shone like concentrated stars. His coat reflected the moonlight like deep water. He approached Lily with deliberate steps, inclining his head in recognition. "The first guardian," someone in the circle whispered. Lily touched the animal's forehead, and a visible current of energy ran through both bodies. When she turned her gaze to those present, her eyes had changed. Vertical pupils like those of a feline cut through irises that alternated between all shades of green existing in nature. "I see you," she said with a voice that seemed to contain multiple layers, as if other voices spoke in sync with hers. "I see your roots, your paths, your place in the great circle." One by one, the ceremony participants approached, receiving specific words, guidance, blessings. Sarah, when finally called to the center, found her ward transformed, not just physically but in essence. Something ancestral now inhabited the body of the young woman she had welcomed, something wise and wild simultaneously. "Sarah," said Lily, her voice momentarily returning to the familiar timbre. "You welcomed me when I was lost. You taught me to love this world, to understand it. This part of me will always be your friend." The two embraced, and Sarah felt a warm energy run through her body, healing old wounds, dissolving deep fears, connecting her to an understanding that transcended words. At dawn, when the ceremony was completed, a new reality had been established. Lily, now recognized as the guardian of the bridge, would assume a mission that transcended conventional boundaries, the mission of reconnecting worlds that had separated, of restoring forgotten dialogues between the human and the wild, between the visible and the invisible. Sarah understood that her role had also transformed. She was no longer just a scientist or protector, but a witness and chronicler of a new story that was beginning to be written. With her academic knowledge and personal experience, she herself became a bridge between the world of science and the mysteries that Lily embodied. The following years brought transformations that spread far beyond the Asheville Mountains. Degraded areas inexplicably reborn, species considered extinct reappearing, traditional communities recovering ancestral knowledge. A new form of relationship with nature slowly emerged, inspired by the teachings that radiated from the center, where the bridge tree grew stronger each day. Researchers documented the phenomena, unable to explain them completely but recognizing their benefits. Governments discreetly consulted the advice that emanated from the young guardian. An invisible network of protection and regeneration extended across the territory, restoring long-lost balances. And always at dusk, when the sun touched the mountains with golden tones, a silhouette could be seen on the distant hills, the black horse, eternal guardian, watching. It didn't approach completely, nor did it distance itself totally. It remained at the border between worlds, like a constant reminder of the extraordinary journey that had begun on a desert night, when a lost young woman had been entrusted to the primordial forces of nature. Sarah, in her personal notes that would one day become a fundamental book for new generations, wrote, "We are all part of a greater web that we are just beginning to understand." Lily, if I can still call her that now, is not an isolated miracle, but the awakening of a consciousness that has always been dormant in us. She didn't come to be worshipped, but to remind that we are, all of us, potential bridges between worlds that should never have separated. Lily, now 21 but carrying the wisdom of ages, continued her silent mission. Sometimes, when she believed herself to be alone, it was possible to see her in the sacred clearing, conversing with presences invisible to common eyes. Other times, she mounted the black horse and galloped along paths that seemed to open between dimensions, visiting places that existed in the folds of the known world. She always returned, however, to the simple house where she had found shelter, to the woman who had welcomed her when she was lost, to the humanity she had learned to love with its contradictions and potentials. She returned because she understood that her true mission was not to choose between worlds, but to unite them in a new synthesis that honored all forms of existence. And so, in the mountains reborn after the purifying fire, a new story continued to be written. Not just the story of an extraordinary young woman and her mythical destiny, but the story of a world rediscovering forgotten connections, awakening to possibilities that had always been present, dormant beneath the veil of separation. The end of the story. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Lily and Sarah has touched your hearts. To continue this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally engaging stories. Find it here, clicking on the left. If you like this narrative, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like on the video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life and the magic that exists in our world. Don't miss our next content. We await you in the comments.